Who's there?
It's Amrita.
Amrita, welcome to the show. Thank you so
Hello.
much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, you guys. I'm very excited to be here.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. It's our pleasure to get more amazing guests on the show. Welcome to everyone tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to another episode of the podcast. We're gonna have a pretty incredible conversation. Amrita is joining us through. I just reached out to you. I kind of feel like we know each other through social media,
Yes,
but we don't know each other like in person. But I guess everybody knows everybody through social media these days. So yeah, and I just am inspired by everything you post. I love that you share your journey, and you talk a lot about things that are relatable for us as busy parents, but also our audience and everybody tuning in that is busy parents. I'd love to kind of start by I can do an intro and I can read a bio, but it's really boring. I love for the guests to just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and also where people can connect with you, because I already mentioned social media, and I think it's important for us to hear that right off the bat at the beginning of the show. So take it away.
Sure, sounds good. All right, so as you guys know, my name is Amrita. I am a mom of 3. I got into the fitness industry just over 3 years ago. And it was kind of a fluke getting into it, but I kind of had developed my passion for fitness and the love and movement of joy for movement kind of by accident. And that really led me to wanting to then help others with that. So anyway, so I got into the fitness industry 3 years ago. I do personal training, group fitness, nutrition information, all that kind of stuff. And I live in a very small town. So what I love about where I live is the fact that I have the opportunity to really connect with people one-on-one and help people on a level that maybe you aren't necessarily going to get when you go to a gym type facility, like a larger commercial gym. So that's what I love about where I live, and being able to really help people one-on-one, face-to-face. So that's kind of where I am. That's where I started a few years ago, and we're just kind of going with it.
That's awesome. I love how you say it's by accident, because I actually think most people in this industry are here by accident. I know I am, and I know you are.
Yep.
And it's amazing the amount of people like, well, I originally went to school for this, or, I had a change in career, right? Or there's always seems to be, it wasn't the intended career path. And if it was your intended career path, that please know that is awesome. But, I find people end up in this industry a lot because of passion or events that have happened in their life, and they either just want to expand their knowledge or pay it forward or just see what they can do with that.
Absolutely.
It's so true. And actually I found with having teams of people and recruiting trainers and through many years of experience, is actually the people that fall into it and get into it by mistake are typically the ones that stay the longest as well. So I don't know if there's a connection there. There's absolutely zero evidence to back that up other than what I just said. But but it's so interesting that the people maybe come into it and realize that it's very different. Whereas when we just lean into our passion, sometimes that ends up creating a real long-term career. So that's always good to hear. Let everyone know. I mentioned social media, Amrita, and I want everyone to kind of find you. So just tell everyone where's the best place to connect with you, because we're going to talk about one of your posts in a minute, but you put some incredible content out there, and there's some really good stuff to follow. So tell everyone where they can find you.
So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is AB Healthy Fitness, all one word, or the same handle on Facebook. I don't really do too much on Facebook. I'm mostly over on my Instagram page, and that's where I do all my posts. Try to do them multiple times a week.
Yeah, there's some really good content, and I love the just casual follow along with the journey, but also great information and just kind of sharing where you're at, which I think is so powerful. And this is what really triggered me to reach out. Like I have this list I tell everyone about. It's a list of podcast guests, and it's people I want to talk to, and then timing lines up and I see something, I'm like, right, this is a good time because I want to talk about a certain topic. Or anyway, you made a post. I'm going to paraphrase this post a little bit, but we'll pre-frame it. You posted something about your fitness journey, and you mentioned that you're a mum of 3 and, you know, postpartum with your 3rd child 5 and a bit years ago, if that's right.
Yeah.
And you talked about kind of that journey, and you posted a transformation picture But what I loved about it was how powerful the caption was. Now, it's no surprise to the listeners that I have a big issue with transformational pictures because of the typical picture that it paints and how it's not realistic. And, we try and expand that on the show by having our members come on and tell their story. You did an incredible job of telling your story. So on that post, I'd love you just to maybe expand it a little bit into words and talk a little bit about what that 5 years has been like for you.
So this is where I say I accidentally fell into this. We had our youngest daughter just over 5.5 years ago. And our previous 2 children we had within the span of 11 and a half months. So there was no really having a break between one kid to the next and being able to enjoy motherhood. It was kind of like, okay, you've got Irish twins, good luck. So we had decided, okay, let's try for a third. We ended up getting pregnant, had this third 2 years later. I'm assuming just the stress from the couple of years beforehand really got to me, especially when our youngest came. She was a very difficult child, very clingy, cried constantly. I always had her on me. I slept with her on my chest for the first 6 weeks because she would not let me put her down. So all of that stress combined with just like your hormonal changes after giving birth put me in this downward spiral that came so fast that it literally knocked me off my feet. One day I woke up and I was just a completely different person. This postpartum depression got me, and it like sunk its claws into me, and I could not get away from it. No matter what I did, no matter who I talked to, I just could not seem to pull myself up. So I remember the tipping point for me was I had called my husband. He was at work, and I said, you need to get home right now because I'm either going to do something to these kids or I'm going to run. And I don't want to do either of those, and I need help. So he got home within like 20 minutes. God bless this man. He got home with like 20 minutes and was like, what do you need? So we went through this process. I'm trying to figure out, what do I do? What do I do? And I thought, okay, listen, I can't even get to the top of the stairs without like needing to take a break, because at that point I had gained just over 60 pounds between all 3 kids. So I couldn't get to the top of the stairs without like having to take a break halfway through. I couldn't play with my kids because I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. So I thought, okay, let's try some weird workout and see if it will help me in any sort of way. So I discovered there was this workout called Insanity Max 30 by Beachbody. And I thought, okay, it's 30 minutes a day. I can fit 30 minutes into my day when the kids are napping, when I can get up earlier, fit it into my day somehow. So I pressed play on that very first day, and it took me over an hour to get through that workout because I just had to keep stopping. I couldn't catch my breath. My lungs were burning. My chest was hurting. My legs were on fire. And I was like, what the heck did I get myself into?
Well, I like that you chose something super, entry level there at max.
Absolutely. If you're going to go in hard, Yes. Anyway, so it took a few weeks for me to be able to actually get through the workout in 30 minutes. But I just kept telling myself, Amrita, there's a bigger picture you have to look at. There's a bigger picture you have to look at. This is not just about you.
Good for you.
Right? You need to look at having a life with your kids and your husband. If you want this to be long term, like the way you're going right now, it's not going to happen. So I added in running and whatnot when I felt like I had the stamina for it. So I added in running, and eventually after it took me 2 years of really focusing on my nutrition, and I wasn't so focused on the movement. I was focused more so on the nutrition once I learned what a big impact that had on the whole picture. And it took me about 2 to 2.5 years to lose 80 pounds. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. I know for some people that's like, hey, it's just 80 pounds, no big deal. For some people that's like, oh my gosh, how would you even start? Have I kept it all off? No, just ups and downs of life. Sometimes you gain, sometimes you lose. But I found now really having to put the emphasis not on looking a certain way because social media tells me I have to look a certain way. And the fitness industry tells me I have to look a certain way. I'm just focused on being healthy in a way that fits my life and my family, and in a way that I can still show my kids that just daily movement, watching, making healthier choices, have your foods that you want to indulge on, here and there, go for it. Doesn't make a difference to me, right? I will never restrict my kids or myself in what I eat, what we eat as a family, but just showing them that this is a lifestyle. It's not just until you reach this certain goal that you have in your mind and then you drop it.
Amazing. What an amazing journey. And I love that there was some wonderful learning moments for you there. But what I love the most is that you stay committed to your goals. And we all know, right? When you first start, it's hard to get over that kind of hump, right? Of it being challenging. But like you said, you went, oh, okay, it took me an hour. Then it took me probably 45 minutes. Then it took you 30 minutes. And you could see these little wins along the way. And you were doing it for yourself, but also for others around you. So I just really love how you dialed in to that. And the bigger picture was to have the joy of movement, be able to be with your children, be able to have a powerful physical body, but a powerful mindset.
Yes.
That was always your goal, right? Your goal was never to look a certain way. And I think there's valuable lessons for absolutely everyone in there, because let's get real. We all have those moments of when we look in the mirror or comparison. Like, even I get it now. And I know a lot through education and being in this industry, but it still gets you, right? There's still those moments. But I love that, again, you've reminded everybody that isn't necessarily the be all and end all.
And I think it also depends where you started, right? If you're starting because in your mind it's I want to look a certain way, you probably aren't going to stick with it much past the point of looking that way. When you are coming into it saying, okay, at this point, it's either life or something that I'm not really willing to give up yet, which would be your life. When you're coming into it thinking, okay, mentally, I need this, physically, I need this for my kids, I need this for being able to experience all the things that I am worthy of experiencing, you're almost guaranteed for success at that point, because you're coming at it from a viewpoint of this is for the rest of my life, not just for this moment in my life, and when you're literally fighting to be alive, you don't take things for granted, and you understand how important the process is and how much time the process takes.
Yeah, it talks a lot to actually something I was talking about a few weeks ago on a show. When we look at goal setting, it's what you did, whether it was purposely or inadvertently did it, was you took that kind of goal, and not to say that this was your goal, but a lot of people will take a goal like, I want to lose weight. And what you inadvertently did was not use something arbitrary like that. Is you went deeper than that, and you started to look at, why, like you said, you want to live a long life, you want to be with your family. And I always encourage people when they come in with something that's fairly arbitrary as a goal, and to your point is there's an end point to it. We shouldn't be looking at goals that have got an end point, not in the long term anyway. So you inadvertently or on purpose went through that process. And I always say to people, just break it down a little bit. Ask yourself why. Yourself why. Like somebody comes in as a nutrition client, says, I want to lose 50 pounds. Great. Why do you want to lose 50 pounds?
Yeah.
Well, because I feel uncomfortable. Great. Why do you feel uncomfortable? Well, because, I can't, my clothes don't fit, or I can't, get in and out of my car comfortably, or it's uncomfortable. Great. So why is that important to you? Why? And you just go on like a broken record. And I'm sure you experience this.
You're peeling back the layers of the onion.
That's it. And when you get down to it, you find something that keeps people on the right path. And it's something to constantly come back to. And it sounds like you were able to do that. Did you do it purposefully? Did you do it, it was by accident? And I guess the follow-on question from that would be, how impactful has that been working with your own clients using that same strategy?
So I definitely went into it just thinking I need to be alive. That was my initial standpoint on everything, because I knew that if I did not help myself, no one else would do it for me. Right. And growing up, and I have to give my dad a big shout out on this. Growing up, there was one thing he always said to myself and to my brother, and it was that, you know, especially as a woman, we are taught that everybody else comes before you. Your husband comes before you, or your spouse. Your children come before you. Your work comes before you. Everything else is a priority. You come at the very end. And my dad always told me growing up that you are first and foremost. After you, your spouse comes. After your spouse, your children come. After your children, your mom, myself, your brother, and everybody else will come after that. You take care of you so you can take care of the rest. So that is something that really stuck with me, because I thought, okay, this man is right. Because if I'm not okay, how am I expecting everybody else to be okay? So this is something I really, really talk to all of my clients about. And majority of them are women. I have a couple men, but majority of them are women who are moms, who are in the very similar position that I started off in. And I always ask them, where is your priority for you? Where do you stand in your life? And if they're telling me, oh, you know, like my husband works and I'm the only one at home and my kids, I'm like, no, cut out the bullshit. I don't want to hear that. Where do you stand? Because if you're not putting yourself at the very top, this is not going to work for you. If you're coming to a group fitness class once a week thinking that it's going to make a difference, it's not going to make a difference. You know, at that point, you're getting out for fun, which is great. But if you're looking to really make that internal change mentally and physically, you need to know that you are number one. And all the work that you have to put in is going to pay off at the end.
That really talks to something that's important. And, you know, we've kind of touched on physical as well as, you know, emotional and mental, but it is that complete package. I talk about this a lot with clients is, yes, there's the physical element of it. And yes, it's important, but that the prioritizing bit really leads into emotional and mental health as well. And I think that's where people miss that. They take that as a secondary. And I'm like, you don't get the physical without the mental and the emotional, because they're the things that derail it. They derail the physical stuff. So if you don't get that in check, the physical stuff is going to get derailed. And it reminds me of you know, something that I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but it's kind of the analogy of the oxygen mask is what you're talking about, right? Yeah. When you're on the plane, you got to put your oxygen mask on, because if you don't, guess what? You're not going to be a lot of good to anybody and no one will get helped. So I always use that. It's so simple and people get it like, oh, right. So I don't have my oxygen mask on, I'm going to die and everyone else is going to die as well. So let's make sure we're prioritizing ourselves to stay alive. But it sounds drastic, but you were in that place and many of your clients and many of our clients have been in that place. So it's very, very powerful. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, really looking at capital S self, you know, this is a concept that's been around for many years, you know, and if I go back to, you know, my studies in yoga, you know, that's self-discipline, self-discovery, self-care, self-practicing rituals have always been there, right? With a view that then you can then project that on your outside world. And somehow I think what's happened in modern day living is it's kind of done the flip.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it all out there. I'm going to help everybody else deflect. And it might be just to, I guess, shy away from actually acknowledging what's happening within. It could be that, or it could just be that there's just lots of energy going out, give, right? And there just isn't time to do some self-reflection or some self-study. So I think through yourself, through us and other, you know, industry leaders, I think it's really important that we communicate this, right? That it really does start with you and you have the impact to change yourself, be the best version of yourself. And that will just radiate out like a ripple effect.
That, and I think it's so important what you said about self-discipline, right? I think a lot of the time, you know, our clients will come to us thinking, oh, I just need some motivation. Like, I need you to motivate me. Okay, what's motivation? What can I say to you that would be any different than what you would say to yourself, right? At the end of the day, the motivation is great, but how long is that going to keep you going, right? Self-discipline, right? Self-understanding, figuring out exactly what works for you, what time of day it works for you, all of these kinds of things. You have to really work at it in the beginning to figure it out It's not so easy, like, like we see on movies or we see on social media, where it just seems like everyone just knows exactly what they have to do. There's no knowing exactly what you have to do, right? You really need to become so aware of yourself, your triggers emotionally, your triggers when it comes to food, what makes you feel really great, what makes you feel not so good. You have to go through the whole process first to figure out what exactly is going to work for you and what might work for me and what I might enjoy. Nikki, you might think like, I'm not doing that kind of workout. Like, that's not my thing. It doesn't make me feel good, right?
She definitely says that. Definitely.
Well, if there's burpees involved, it's definitely a no. Just saying.
Oh, go burpees. We love the burpees.
No, I'd rather do mountain climbers. I know that's like the would you rather? But there we go.
Both fun. Yeah, it's very powerful for anyone listening to understand that you have to find what works for you. You mentioned earlier about, being healthy in a way that fits in your life. Mm-hmm. That's important. And this is where, we, and not that this show is to bash social media at all, because, we all of us use it as a tool.
And it
can be powerful, right? But what it does is it paints this picture that there's a best way to do something.
And an only way.
Yeah, an only way, right?
Like you were saying, right?
Yeah. And I always say the only optimal way to do something is something that you can keep doing. Like, you want to build a healthy lifestyle, you got to choose something that's sustainable, and that doesn't look the same for anyone. And that this is where I think people get confused in what coaching is and what a coach is. Because in my opinion, that's what a coach is. The coach is to kind of take all that stuff, be very agnostic about it. And I like to refer to this as putting it through a filter. So I'm the filter as a coach. I'm going to take all that stuff out there that's probably got some merit. It's probably got, some good metrics and some good evidence around it, whatever it might be, any way to do something, and then filter it down and figure out what's going to help the person, right? By asking good questions and being curious. And people get confused and people ask me, well, what's the difference between me having a coach and just, doing a workout? I'm like, because I'm not taking you through a workout. That's not what I'm doing. I'm here to coach you through that process, right? And it's overwhelming. I made a post about this last week. It's so overwhelming to try and decipher all that information. Sometimes it's just a good idea to pay someone else to go through that for you, right?
Yeah,
and take a decision off the table.
And I do find, especially in our industry, that those of us who really get it have been at a point where we can say, okay, all right, we know how hard this is going to be, right? We know how much work you're going to have to put in. So I think sometimes when people try to do it on their own, it's great. If you can figure it out and you can do it on your own, go for it. All the power to you. But I think a lot of people don't understand truly how hard you do have to work. Mm. And when you have someone who's a coach telling you, okay, I'm going to break this all down for you, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to get to where you want to be, it is so much easier.
Yeah. And then and I agree with that. And just to add on to that is I'm going to break all this down and give you exactly what you need, but also when you need it, something else people miss, right? Because they jump into, that's what supplements do I need and what kind of split do I need to be doing on my bodybuilder workout? You don't need to do either of those things. You don't need supplements. You don't need a bodybuilder. Yeah, you need to move a little bit more and probably eat vegetables, and we'll start there. And this is it. People are like, well, that seems so simple. I had a client recently where the weekly goal was to sit down and be mindful of how often they were chewing their food at every meal. They were like, well, that seems pointless. I'm like, trust me, it's not, and it's what you need right now, right? And come back in a week when you've done it, and then they're like, wow, it was like life-changing. Shocker. I kind of knew that was going to happen, right? So it's having the skill and having a bit of the confidence or arrogance, if you want to call it that, to be able to put that out there and say, no, this is what you need, and I know what's going to happen at the end of it. And that's the power of a great coach.
Well, and I also think that, like you said, like your goal right now for this client is to sit down and be mindful of how many times you're chewing your food, what you're eating, how long you're taking, right? It doesn't always have to be this big grand gesture of change. It's these little tiny steps that we take along the way that help us to get to where we want to be. It increases our knowledge. It helps us understand what feels good, what doesn't feel great for us, right? And I think a lot of the time we think, okay, like, all right, we're going to do this. I'm starting today. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to make sure I have just fruit and vegetables and protein in my house. I can't keep any junk food. You know, how long are you going to last if you deprive yourself of cookies? One day you're going to go buy the box of cookies and you're going to eat the whole thing. Then you're going to be mad at yourself.
Yep.
Right? So starting small and understanding that it's a process will help you so much more in the long run.
Yeah, it's that it's understanding. I break this down a lot with like infographics and stuff, is linear progression, the myth that is linear progression. And it's not like that, right? It isn't start here, get there, and we're going to be perfect along the journey. It doesn't work like that. So I'm going to ask you, this is kind of a bit of a selfish question, but it's my podcast, I do what I want. So I'll ask it selfishly, but I know it's going to impact other people. And this is all great information. I love this conversation so far. However, I want everyone to hear a little bit deeper. So this question is going to be a little bit more challenging, I'd say. Okay. So you put out some incredible content. I've said it many times. I'm going to say it many more times as well. There is a vulnerability in what you post. And I like that. And you may not see that, and other people might not see that. But from years of experience, I get it. And from someone that's lived a life of being very insecure, I understand that there's a bravery involved in that. I struggle a little bit with the bravery involved with being transparent and being vulnerable. And I know many other people do. And I feel like sometimes that's why people don't put themselves out there for anything, right? They're not even about social media. Yours happens to be relative to that. But if somebody comes to coaching, is they don't know how to turn up and be vulnerable and transparent and ask for help. So my big loaded question is, how do you show up like that? Where do those brave choices come from? Maybe you don't feel it as brave. That's okay. Share that too. But if it is a brave choice and it is a brave decision to be vulnerable, to show up as yourself and be transparent about you and your journey, where do you get the confidence, and how do you feel empowered to do that?
I definitely don't feel brave especially when I post pictures of my body. I don't feel brave because in my DMs, I get a lot of messages from people saying, oh, you call yourself a trainer. Look at the way you look. Like, you don't have muscles. You don't have this. I do have it. It's just under a layer of a mom body. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very natural way to look, especially for many of us moms. But my whole reason for my page, and I'll be very honest, my page, if you go like scroll down, is very up and down. I went through a phase where I thought, ooh, let me give just like educational content. Let me give just sweaty selfies. Let me do this, let me do that, until I figured out what it is that my audience wanted to see. And they wanted to see me being real. So as much as it might make me uncomfortable, it's coming from a place of sincerely wanting to help others, of making sure that others realize that they are not alone, especially women. Because as much as we say, oh, women, we should uplift one another, it's not what happens in reality. That's not what happens. And I just think it's so sad that we can't openly talk about postpartum depression. We can't openly talk about the changes our bodies go through, not just after having kids, but like month to month, like cycle to cycle. It's not always the same, you know? And I really want people to come to my page and know that it's a safe space. It's a judgment-free zone always. And that whatever I'm posting, hopefully will resonate with somebody else, and they can say, okay, you know what? She's dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. At least there's one person who gets it.
Yeah. And I get it. I'm a mom too, right? Like, and I think it's such a hard place to be. And I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy because we have unrealistic expectations. And then, you know, we become very focused on what others think and feel, rather than actually really paying attention to ourselves. Like, I do get that. And there's that element of judgment. And certainly working in the fitness industry, coming back after having a baby, there was like, well, shit, you know, if I'm going to stand on stage and encourage others and motivate others, then I've got to look and be a certain way, right? Like that 100% was going through my head. I had huge imposter syndrome and just that fear factor of, well, what happened to Nicky?
Yeah.
Like, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like, you laugh, and it really is true, you know? So I felt this struggle too. And I know this is something else that you put on your post, and I want to talk about it now, is setting those realistic expectations around time frame and what you can see in post recovery. You know, and we see this BS in the media that, oh, so and so got their, you know, got their body back, whatever body back means.
Whatever body back
That's a different
means,
conversation. Got their body back in 5 minutes, right? Like, come on, we don't, like, no, this is not helping. This is absolutely not helping anybody. So, you know, I mean, I'd love for you to share, you know, the realistic time frame where you felt that you had made change, where, you know, you felt happy within yourself. Like, let's talk about realistic time frame from your experience. I'm happy to share too. And then some tips that, you know, anybody who's listening can kind of take on board.
I don't know if there is like a realistic time frame that you can put on something like this, because I feel like it's a lifelong change. But when I really started to feel more confident in myself, I want to say it was maybe a year ago.
So how long was that from your last pregnancy?
4.5 years.
Interesting. Mine was about 3 years.
Yeah. I think it's a lot longer than what obviously the media will tell us, right? Because, you know, we're not superstars, we're not celebrities, we don't have a team of people working with us. It's just us, right? So I think that 3 to 5 year time frame is pretty realistic. And it's also like, in that amount of time, not just feeling good in yourself, but figuring out like, how do we work as a family now? Like, we've got this new addition to our household, and just for the baby, all the changes that the baby goes through in those first 3-4 years, the changes that your relationship goes through in that amount of time, your whole family is now adjusting and has to work together as this huge unit. And you're still trying to figure that out 3 years in. So how they expect you to now look snatched again a year later, I don't know. It blows my mind.
But it's true. Thank you for bringing that up. Like, it's more, there's a lot to it. And there's a lot to it that will affect you as a woman, as a mom, you know, hormonally, physically, mentally. So give yourself a break. Mom, if you're listening, give yourself a break. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of things that are not in your control. And there are a lot of things that are in your control. And it's finding that balance, like you mentioned, right? And working out how to roll with it and to use it in a way where you can still feel successful.
Yeah. And success looks so different from person to person. You know what I mean? Like, I look at you guys and I think, man, this is like a power couple. Like, they know what they're doing and they've got their goals, and they are not just moving towards them, they are like shooting themselves at them. Do you know what I mean?
Like so a superhero? So you're saying I'm a superhero? I love it.
Pretty much. I mean, you are anyway. You're a mom, so there you go. But I think in that sense, like, it's so different from person to person. Like, I look at you guys as being incredibly successful people, right? And someone could look at me and think the same thing, where in my head, I'm not nearly halfway to where I want to be. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's also relative person to person.
Yeah, absolutely. And quick spoiler for anyone listening, we haven't got a clue what we're doing.
No, I'm definitely not.
Just in case you hadn't figured that out in the last 70 episodes of the podcast and social media. But it talks back to that, you know, the highlight reel of life that people put out there, right? And whether that's your relationship, your business, your fitness goals, like whatever it is, it can appear to be, and don't get me wrong, there's space for being professional and showing up, you know, with great content and edited videos, and there's a space for that because you're running a business, so it is important. It would be like me, you know, making a terrible audio quality podcast and putting it out there. There's a step to doing that in any part of your life. But like you said, everyone's journey is different, and there's space for the vulnerability of saying, this is, I did a post a while back. It was something like, show your office space, you know, kind of thing, whatever. So it was something, and that's probably about my level of sometimes my level of vulnerability, but I posted it because quite frankly, what we're sitting in right now is an absolute mess. But I have to work somewhere. So, and I posted it because I was like, this is what it looked like. People think might look and say, well, it looks like a really professional business. I'm like, yeah, this is my desk in the basement.
Background.
Yeah,
This is
clearly fake background. But yeah, you have to put that out there sometimes, right? And you have to show it. And sometimes we post pictures of our studio because it looks really nice on the camera shot when we're streaming workouts. However, when what we're looking at is our washing machine with a tripod on it, right? So I'm like, this is what it really looks like. And we did a presentation about it a few months ago, and we talked about exactly that. And we showed that. We're like, look at this wonderfully edited video. It's amazing. Now look at what it actually looks like in our basement. It looks like crap, right? Apart from one corner. So it's so important that we share that stuff and that we talk about it, because those journeys are different and we're all going through different struggles at different times. And and this is why I just respect your content so much, because you do such a great job of that. You show that professional polished edge of things, and then you show sometimes it sucks and sometimes it isn't as tidy as it is, right? So good.
That, I'm like, not every day is going to be great. You know what I mean? Like, not every day is perfect. Not every day is wonderful. Some days you want to sit on the couch with a bag of chips and you just want to eat that all day long. And you know what? Go for it. Go for it. As long as the next day you pick yourself back up and you get back on track.
Yeah.
Right?
Finding the balance.
We're human being. It's fine.
Yeah. And you mentioned something else I think is powerful earlier on that kind of segues into you kind of mentioned about being a role model indirectly, about role modeling kind of behaviors and habits around your kids. And, we have lots of clients that are similar to the three of us and, people that listen to the show. Is the kind of over restricting things and how this doesn't end well for us on our fitness journeys, typically. But also for our kids too, and teaching habits. This is a complete minefield. So there is no right answers, and we're not child psychologists, but we'll share this is something I struggle with, is where do you find that balance for kids? Because if you let kids, they'd eat candy and chocolate all day. And anyone that says differently and says, oh, well, my kid eats, no, your kid doesn't choose nutritious food over junk, because it's made to be highly palatable and people want it. We want it, our kids want it. Where do you even start? Like, maybe, I don't even know if it's a question, but how do you navigate that in your house, I guess is the question. Like, where's the boundary? How do you kind of present that to build good habits with your kids that are going to last them a lifetime?
I think it's just, like you said, like not restricting, right? We don't label food as like good or bad foods. They do know that to start their day, there's no Lucky Charms, there's no Fruity Pebbles. Like, you're going to eat a proper breakfast, even if it's just cereal. It's going to be a cereal that's not filled with tons and tons of sugar. You got to have something that's a little bit more adult, if you might want to put it that way, right? That's something that has at least a little substance to it. After that, if they want to have treats and they want to have snacks and stuff, we'll just kind of be like, okay, so what have you had so far today to eat? And I'll be very honest in this. Our kids don't just like open the fridge and open the cupboard and grab what they want to eat. They always, and I don't know why they do this, but they will always say, Mommy, is it okay if I have? So they will always ask our permission first. We've never told them, like, you have to ask our permission. They've always been welcome to open the fridge and grab what they want, but they always just come to us first and say, is it okay if we have this? So I'll generally say, what have you had so far? Let's make a choice that might be something that'll keep you fuller a little bit longer. And then if you still want to have, I don't know, the Cheetos after, go for it, right? I'm never going to say you cannot eat that, because I think right there, that's setting them up for a life of disordered eating and good and bad, right? There's nothing that you're going to eat that's going to be good for you versus bad for you. Everything is okay. As long as it's not causing your body harm, it's fine. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I think we're lucky in the sense that they always ask us before they eat anything, which I know is not like a common thing. I know that's not common. But we also don't say like, no, you cannot eat certain things.
Yeah, I think give yourself some credit in that. I think when kids do that, I think we've created an environment where when they don't do that, they're trying to hide it. Like, they know what's
you mean
nutrition.
Asking for snacks?
Yeah,
right.
They're just going to go do it and then hide it if they think that it's going to be a big deal, right? And yeah, they're going to be in trouble. So I think if you give them enough autonomy and you educate them, they're just going to say, hey, can I have this? Because they know there's going to be either it's going to be a yes, you can, or there's going to be a good reason why you can't have it right now. And I'm playing with this thing right now. I've been trying to figure this out in my head for 6 years, or maybe 5. It is the spectrum when it comes to food. And this is where I'm trying to, probably at nauseum, trying to implement this in our house is there is more nutritious food and there is less nutritious food. Yeah. And I was very happy, very proud of myself last night because we were sitting at the dinner table and we had a conversation and then Harley's saying, well, this is like more fruit, less candy. Yeah, that doesn't mean no candy. It means less candy, more fruit, less candy, right? Because it's more nutritious or it's more protein, less, I can't remember what she said now, probably some ridiculous things as well, but got the general idea of it. And again, it's so, because I found that what we were doing is she was starting to label things as healthy or not healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not. I said, everything can be part of your healthy diet because it isn't just the nutrients in the food. It's everything. It's your relationship with it, right? It's a healthy relationship with food. So that's what kind of we've been playing with. And it sounds kind of similar, right? You said, right? Yeah, you can have this. Have your, just like I talk to my clients, prioritize your protein, get your vegetables, drink your water. And then, hey, if you want to eat candy afterwards,
go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
So less water, more wine. Is this a good one?
That was one of the ones we did. And
that's what Nicky hears. So you're saying that I can have more to drink. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. And then we played around. We were like, so how does it work? Tell us. Is it more cider, more wine? More? She's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, have some fun with it. But I think as parents, we sometimes struggle with the control element. And I know this is because I speak to many parents and have the same conversation is we want to kind of control it because we're trying to do our best. We want them to be set up for success. But I think all of us can take away that sometimes when we let the reins off a little bit and try and educate in that manner, and we're not perfect. That was just a good example of when it went right. The once it went right this year, when it came to those conversations, is it can go right.
You know that she's listening. You know that whatever you're saying, it's getting through to her, right? It might not be coming out constantly. It might not be something that she says every day, but at least like you're getting these little nuggets, knowing that, hey, okay, our hard work is paying off. She's understanding. So you're doing it right.
But can't we also relate this, to clients, rather than just at them, eat this, do this, at 12 o'clock, eat this, sleep here, do this, work out here. Mm-hmm. I think the same can be said that, if we involve them in the process,
100%.
Right. And even have conversations with them like that, like more of this, less of that. Like, I think it's relative as well as a coach with clients.
Yeah.
100%. And I find with all of my clients, what I do when they're like personal training clients, not my group fitness guys. But when we're talking about programming and all that kind of stuff, with their program, I always give them, I call it a nutrition report. And in there, I'll break down what you need to eat in a day. I will never say that you cannot eat something. I always tell them in our conversation, you feel like going out and eating a burger and fries, go out and eat a burger and fries. But I expect that you're going to come back and you're going to see where that fit into everything I said that you can eat in a day. And I'm going to make sure that it's fitting in. Right? Because then this way you're guaranteed to still stay on track and still go out and eat the foods that you want to eat when you go out with your family or with your friends. Right? Yeah. I think being a coach is our responsibility to explain that you still have a life to live. This moment you're in right now of trying to take control of your health and your wellness does not mean that you give everything up. Yeah. Right? You still have to live the life that you're here for.
And I think that mindset, is what has kept you successful. Am I right in saying that, right? That's what helped you along the way?
I think so. Although I will say that this mindset, we talked earlier about when I felt like I felt good, and it took up until now, up until a year ago. In that process of figuring out what worked, what didn't, I went through a lot of ups and downs with nutrition, a lot of obsessive times where I weighed everything and counted everything down to the calorie and thought, oh my gosh, I can't eat that because that's going to put me over 4 calories for the day. And I can't do that. It became so obsessive. And it wasn't until that I said, Amrita, like, how are you planning on living the next 60, 70 years of your life like this? Are you going to carry a scale with you everywhere? Are you going to obsess over the 2 or 3 calories? No, you're not, because you have a lifetime of celebration ahead of you. And if you want to be able to enjoy any of those moments, you cannot do what you're doing. Right? So I think it's only within, I want to say, a year to a year and a half where I've actually been like, okay, it's okay to enjoy yourself. It's okay to give yourself permission to go out and eat and not feel bad when you come home.
Yeah, the guilt is a downward spiral of
100%.
of everything in life, right? Like when we have that, I talked about this actually this past week about guilt and forgiveness, and basically it was we came to the conclusion that that guilt and that forgiveness is only really apparent in our life because of the expectations we set. So we switch our expectations, we don't suffer with that, right? So, do we have to forgive ourselves? Probably not, if we're setting the right expectation, right? And being able to live our lives. And I think you raised a great point about the kind of, measuring food. And, I talk about this a lot in our nutrition program, is there are many ways to be mindful of what you eat. You can track it if it works for you. You can use portion sizes. You can, do heaps of different things to be aware. You can balance your plates with food. And what I always tell people is, this is not your life. This is a skill you're learning, because eventually that skill will transfer. You'll be able to look like, I can track my food. I can do it by eyeballing it, but I can also do it by tracking it to keep myself on track. So it's a skill that I use. It's not my identity. I'm not the person that tracks my food every day. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It's a skill I use if I feel like I need to get myself on track with something, or I just need a little bit of a check-in. If you're using hand portion sizes, that's a skill that you've learned. So sometimes you might have to say, oh, that probably looks like a bit too much of a portion for me, or I need to up my portion of this. So I talk about that too, be careful. And this is where sometimes the fads out there in the world of nutrition and in exercise, we become that. I became I'm just going to use a few examples. I'm not picking on anything in particular, but I am keto. I am vegan. I am a CrossFitter. I am a runner.
Yeah.
No, you're a person that uses this skill to be healthy, or a skill to eat, or whatever it might be. It's just a skill. So remember that when you look at anything, try to look at it like that. Anything you're using, any fitness program, you're just developing skills that you can utilize, to your point, so you can live a lot longer and have that live. What I love what you said. I wrote it down. Live the life that you're here for.
Yeah.
It might be the title of this episode.
Yeah, I like that. Boom. Boom and done.
Decision made.
So what does the future look like for you? What plans do you have professionally and personally as we look forward in this industry or beyond?
Personally, I'm hoping, so travel is something that's really big for our family. My husband and I, very early on in being parents, decided that things were not important for our kids, toys and this and that were not really what we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on saving that money and taking our kids traveling. So a lot more travel to come, fingers crossed.
Awesome. Yeah.
Business wise, I'm still just out here trying to grow my business, offering my classes. I have started from the ground up on my own, one-person show. And I'm doing this honestly for my children. I'm doing it to set something up for their future. And I'm just hoping that one of them follows in my footsteps. So on all those days where I hear from them, Mommy, when do we get you a little bit more? I'm hoping that it pays off in the future, because I know you guys get it.
I feel you. Not too much.
The hours that we put in are pretty insane. So yeah, I'm hoping it just sets up my kids for the future, but definitely more of my classes that I love to teach, more personal training, continuing on with my education year after year, just picking up more little tidbits as the years go by.
Awesome.
That's the plan.
Well, all the best to you.
Thank you guys
so much for joining us today. It's been so great chatting with you. There's been some wonderful moments in there, right? Like learning moments, I think, for everyone, even for both of us, right? Like, and just little reminders. And it's just great having these types of conversations. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you guys. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I was so nervous coming into this. I was like, oh, I've never done this before. But yes, it's been awesome. It's been so great.
Well, there you go. Now you're a pro. Maybe that you can add that to your what's in it for the future. More podcasts.
Podcast pro.
Yeah, there you go. Put that on your resume. The last thank you goes to everyone tuning in. We appreciate you listening as always. We are, proudly 75 episodes in, and we appreciate your support, because if no one's listening, it's tough to get a message out there. So if you did enjoy the show, you got some takeaways, which I know people listening did, or someone, maybe a mum in your life that, as this will really resonate with their journey, share it with them, get them to have a listen, and, make sure you go over to the show notes as well, where you can find Amrita's details. You can find our details at the Nock Academy. You can see what everyone is doing. That's it for today's show. As I said, we appreciate everyone tuning in, being part of our community, and we will catch you on the next episode.